Very quick trigger warning for this episode for mentions of suicide and infanticide. Oh, hey there, spooky listener. Good news. You still have some time before the episode starts if you want to scroll up and hit that follow or subscribe button, depending on whatever platform you're listening to this on. We have no preference. They're all good. If you're feeling really generous, you can even leave us a little review. We like 5-star ones the best. And tell us why you like the podcast. If you don't like the podcast, that's cool, but why are you listening? There's loads of other stuff to listen to out there. If you want to send us a little more detailed feedback, we have a dedicated email address. It's rowanandpinepod@gmail.com. The and is spelled out, so it's Rowan, A-N-D, pinepod@gmail.com. And also, please use that for spooky stories and encounters and stuff that you just want us to talk about on the pod. And failing all that, if email's not really your thing, you can always find the links to any of our socials in the link tree that's in the description of every episode. Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Discord, whatever it is that you like to use. And make sure to tag us if you're recommending the pod. Also memes. Did you get all that? Good. Okay, start the intro music.
All right, here we go. It's recording.
Everything
is fine.
Do you ever feel like technology is trying to call you stupid?
Yes, like always. What?
I was going to say that fight I had with Spotify for podcasters earlier.
I was going to bring that up because ever since we started doing the podcast stuff, it's made me feel comforted knowing that I'm not the only person that struggles severely with passwords.
Oh, God, yeah. And I'm just like, oh.
It's every time.
I'll do a variation of the passwords that I use and I'll just change some letters and stuff into numbers or whatever. No. It's always no, fuck you. We've never heard of you before. You better reset this whole thing.
I know. And I will have it written down and I'll use that password. And it's not the right password. I'm like, what? And then I go to reset the password to the password that wasn't the right one, supposedly. And then it's you've already used that one. I'm like, nope. Wait.
It was I literally showed, I don't know who I was showing it to, but I showed my phone to my laptop earlier because I was logged in on my phone and on my laptop on the browser, it was telling me I didn't exist. And I was like, but I'm logged in. What do you mean? I'm showing it. It's here. Look at me. Oh, welcome to Rowan and Pine.
Welcome to Rowan and Pine. My name is Emily.
And my name is Niamh. This is a spooky folklore and mythology podcast.
A spookily fookily.
That was my stomach, if you could hear that.
I could not hear that.
My stomach just riveted like a frog. I don't know. That was a completely brand new noise for me.
It's Friday the 13th. Anything could happen.
Hell yeah.
Well, it's not when this comes out, but when we're recording, it's Friday the 13th.
Yes. Emily has a little Friday the 13th-y kind of treat lined up for you, which it will be out by the time. Yes. It'll be out by the time this episode goes, because this is our last episode of the month.
Okay, so this is the last one of October.
Yeah. We're cheating a little bit because it probably shouldn't go up until the 1st of November, but we wanted a Halloween episode. Because the 1st of November is the Wednesday. Our normal Wednesday upload.
Yeah.
But we're uploading a day early because we just love you guys so much. And we're Capricorns and we like following a very specific pattern and plan. We can't not have a Halloween episode. That's our whole thing.
I was telling Niamh yesterday about how we make the joke about us being Capricorns so often that I made the joke in therapy, and my therapist looked at me and was like, I don't know what that means. I was like,
because he's a normal person.
Sorry. Also doesn't listen to our podcast, so.
Well, fuck him. I don't listen to his, so.
If he someday does listen.
Hey.
He'll discover that. Hi.
Hi. If Emily says mean things about me, I don't want to know. Therapy.
Legally, he can't tell you. Unless I wanted to hurt you, which I don't, so that's good.
That is good. It would also take you a very long time to get here to hurt me, you know?
Tangent time, another tangent. We always go on tangents.
Of course.
when I used to come visit Chicago when I was younger, I would always take the bus because it's like 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this one time I was going back to Minneapolis from Chicago, and somebody was on the bus, and they kept making phone calls because like someone took their child or something.
What?
It was lots of drama was happening in the seat behind me on these phone calls. But this person was like, I'm on my way back from Chicago right now. Like, when I get there, I'm going to hunt you down and kill you. I'm like, they have like 7 hours till you get there. Maybe don't warn them that far in advance.
They could get on like a pretty decent flight in that time.
Yeah, they
could literally
be
be
pretty
in
far
Europe,
away.
like.
Yeah, they could be seeing you.
Dear God. I love that. I love secondhand drama. When you're just like, this doesn't involve me. I love it.
I heard many weird conversations when I was on the bus.
See, you're lucky.
Fun times.
All I got was people eating egg sandwiches and oranges for some reason on a bus.
Well, you weren't on the bus from Chicago to Minneapolis.
Yeah. That's people making life-changing journeys, I guess.
You're in Ireland.
Mm-hmm. We just get smelly old men with scabby noses trying to sit beside us. There's a lot of alcoholics on the bus.
Oh, scabby noses.
Yeah.
I was like, ew, why are people's noses falling off?
Yeah, alcoholism.
Terrible.
They always just smell like old hair.
Old hair?
Do you know what I mean? You know, like when somebody hasn't washed their
expired hair? Oh.
Like really dirty old hair.
So dirty hair, not old hair.
Same thing.
Oh my God.
If it was not apparent, it is 10 o'clock at night on a Friday night here, and I am drinking Jack Daniels, so this is going to be a very interesting episode.
Yeah. So buckle up and enjoy the ride.
Hit that like button. Smash that subscriber button.
Just smash all the buttons.
Just smash all the buttons.
Yeah. Do it for us.
Yeah. We deserve your likes. So I should probably get to what actually the episode is about. If you have not looked at your feed and seen what the title of the episode is, if you're one of the I'll just listen to everything people, hi, I'm like you as well. And it's always a nice little surprise when people announce what the episode's about. You're like, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's like we are the same.
Yeah. So this episode is going to be about the folklore of Crossroads. So Crossroads, not the Britney Spears movie. Which, fun fact, was directed by Shonda Rhimes of Grey's Anatomy fame. She's like the creator of Grey's Anatomy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Also, sorry if you can hear you in like online gaming in the background.
I can't, but
it sounded like he was quacking there for a second. Anyway.
Oh my gosh.
Crossroads, as in liminal spaces, as in the meeting of two separate boundaries. All of that kind of cool stuff. And the folklore, entities, the traditions associated with it. I'm sure there's some things that are like flashing through people's heads already going, if you've ever watched Supernatural, you're probably thinking of Crossroads demons. Because there was like a specific demon that kept showing up to make deals at the Crossroads. That. Yeah. Also, I was looking up, I was like, I want to get a picture of a Crossroads demon, and Snooki was one of them. She was like a guest star as a Crossroads demon.
On what?
On Supernatural.
On Supernatural?
Yeah. I stopped watching that show in like season 13 or something like that, so I missed a lot.
You got further than I did.
Yeah.
I think I stopped around season 9.
Yeah, I should have stopped after season 5, but you know.
It just was like, it was good. And then I was like, okay, how many times does one character have to die and come back?
Yeah. I think what eventually made me give up on Supernatural, and I'm so sorry to all the Supernatural fans listening, because I know you're probably very defensive about it. From what I remember of being in that fandom, they all were very defensive about it.
They love it very, very much.
Yes. I think what made me give up on Supernatural was they were starting another series or another season where one brother was in trouble and he was keeping it a secret from the other brother. And I was like, how many times can we do this? We can't just do this again. Please, no. All of this could be avoided if you two just had a conversation.
Yeah.
Dear God.
Yeah, it's so funny because when a really good show ends and you feel like it's too early, you're like, no, it shouldn't be ending yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you go through this, like you hate it, you don't want it to end. But then also at the same time, you have to think about the fact that like if it kept going, it would just be a mess.
Yeah, like there are some shows when you look back on them, you're like, that was a perfect show and it ended exactly when it should have.
Right.
Like there's that show The Leftovers, which was Justin Theroux is in it, and it was by Damon Lindelof, who was one of the creators of Lost, and he like famously said that he learned while making Lost that a show can go on for too long because it's so successful, and when you have an idea for an ending of a show, just end the fucking show. And that's what he did with The Leftovers, and it's like I think it's 3 seasons, and it's just 3 seasons of perfect television. It's just absolutely like the last season is the best, you know?
Yeah. That's how Schitt's Creek was.
Yeah, I need to finish Schitt's Creek.
Watching it, it was like, no, it can't be ending now. But like, it was a good ending. It was, you know, they did beat it to death.
Mm-hmm. I think the Parks and Rec ending's really good too.
Yeah. And then they came back with that odd, like, final season.
Yeah.
That one was weird.
The one that was like after Chris Pratt had lost all the weight.
I think so.
It did make me laugh though. They were like, they couldn't just ignore the fact that he'd lost loads of weight and gotten really buff to be in a Marvel movie. And it was just like they cut to a scene of him and like Adam Scott speaking. He's like, yeah, I just gave up beer and I just look like this now. I was like, that's a really good way of addressing it.
Yeah, the only thing I remember about that is I don't remember when that season came out. It might have been like 2013 or 2014.
Yeah, it was 2014, I'm going to say. I was in Canada anyway.
My goodness. And it was funny because they were like, oh, the year's 2016 and the Cubs just won the World Series. And then the Cubs, who forever were like cursed, like they hadn't won a World Series in like 100 years. They won in 2016.
Wow.
Which also was funny because when I moved here in January and baseball doesn't start till the spring. And I told Medardo, I was like, if the Cubs win the World Series this year, it means I'm your good luck charm. You have to keep me forever. And then they did.
Oh.
Which was like a miracle. And I was like, see?
It's all because of you.
It's because of me.
But anyway.
Anywho, Crossroads.
So.
Crossroads!
What was the song? I'm not a girl, not yet a woman.
Crossroad.
Oh, wasn't that the song? You will not be familiar with this, but anybody in the UK and Ireland will be familiar with Blazing Squad, who were a British rap group, and it was all like teenage boys in like hooded parkas. And their big song was "See You at the Crossroads, Crossroads, Crossroads." I think that was Blazing Squad. I'm sure somebody's very offended on behalf of Blazing Squad if it wasn't them.
That's so funny.
Okay, but we're going to get into some actual cool music that's associated with Crossroads. I'm going to take you through their folkloric and historical significance. We're going to talk about their relationship to blues music. And then we're going to talk about some entities, in particular from the Vodou religion that are associated with Crossroads as well. So Crossroads and their historical significance. Crossroads are, as we know, liminal spaces, and the significance of liminal spaces are where the boundaries are the most thin at things like windows, crossroads, places where the veil between the spirit world and our world is the thinnest, which is also today, when this episode is uploaded, Halloween.
Right. I was going to say, 'tis the season.
'Tis the season. Because of liminality, magic actually has more power. It occurs at these boundary times where two opposing ideals meet. Sunset is another example of a liminal time because it's when the day turns into night.
Right.
Another aspect of this liminality or being between things is crossroads represent the need for a choice. Because if you're a traveler, you have to know which road you're going to take.
Right.
So it's a good representation of you making a choice or making a plan or making a bargain and you choosing which direction your life is going to take. So that's why Crossroads have been sort of classically this place of huge choices and huge decisions and asking for help or invoking certain entities or things like that.
Yeah.
They're not always a positive thing and they haven't always a positive thing. Just a few aspects or places where crossroads have popped up throughout history. So in Ireland, as I always start here, in the 1700s, when dancing was prohibited by the English, the Irish would meet on country crossroads. They would bring food, drink, and musical instruments, keeping an eye out for the approaching soldiers from all sides as they danced their country dances. Because crossroads were typically not owned by anybody. Like, it wasn't on anybody's land. So they weren't going to get anybody else in trouble. There was probably like a space, and it was a place that was probably paved, so it was relatively flat, so everybody could go and dance and like have their food and have a big old party.
Can I pause for a second?
Of course.
And just like, what the fuck is wrong with the English? No offense to our English listeners, but my God, they just go to other places and go, no more fun.
Well, that was part of it was because they wanted to stamp out everything to do with Irish culture. So they didn't want the dancing going on.
You can't be happy you're Irish.
They didn't want like them saying Catholic masses. So like even now they're still like, they refer to them as mass trees because like they would lock them out of the churches or burn down the churches or, you know, somehow prohibit them from entering the churches. So the people, when they wanted to practice their faith, would meet at like a specific tree in their neighborhood and have a mass there, which is fucking depressing. Imagine like meeting up to have a mass. Like I used to do anything to get out of mass when I was a kid.
They're like, they burned down the church, but we're just going to go to this tree. You're like, fuck.
Yeah. Although, like, in the whole thing of we're always talking about on this podcast, Christian beliefs have replaced, like, they replaced, like, a lot of pagan beliefs. A lot of these mass trees or mass rocks were actually sites of pagan heritage as well. So they were always spiritually significant. It was just the spiritualism was replaced over the years.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's also the theory, now I don't know how true it is, but you know the way Irish dancers, they're really stiff from like the waist up.
Yeah.
Apparently that's because like all of the old like doors on the houses were like half doors. So like in the evening time you would have like the top part of your door open but the bottom part was closed, almost like a gate to keep like their animals out or whatever. Right. They reckon that like when you were dancing behind the doors, if you kept your upper body stiff, it didn't look like you were dancing. So when the English soldiers went past, it didn't look like anybody was dancing. But like you're still hopping around the place. I don't know. I think that is bullshit. But I looked into it once because I was like, I want somebody to debunk this for me, and I couldn't find anything debunking it. So if anybody listening here knows anything about Irish dancing, please tell me that's fake because that's so stupid.
That is so funny, though. I love the idea that people are just kicking their heels around below the door. Yeah, like, as long as I stand very straight on top, then nobody will know. Just
maintaining full eye contact. Just like dancing.
That's exactly what I was picturing.
You're not going to fucking stop me.
Yeah. Clickety clack.
To lower the mood significantly, traditionally people who died by suicide were buried at crossroads. So because suicide was regarded as completely shocking and blasphemous and against God, the term used was felo de se, like a Latin term, meaning a crime against oneself. It resulted in the body being buried at a crossroads with a stake through their heart and no religious ceremony. It was believed that not only were the deceased undeserving of hallowed ground, but because, again, the crossroad was unowned land, nobody else was responsible for them.
Wow.
Which is
so
horrific.
We really have never enjoyed giving people the mental help they deserve.
Absolutely not.
Or mental health care.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Although, funny enough, like, well, not funny, haha. Funny, strange. Similar to today, it usually will take a celebrity to raise awareness over things like this.
Right.
So when people became more understanding of mental illness and depression, there was a lord in England, Lord Castlereagh. In 1822, he died by suicide. And when people were more aware of like his story and his mental state, they started to re-examine this whole thing of burying people at Crossroads.
Yeah.
Also, sadly enough, they used to also bury executed criminals at Crossroads once again, so that nobody would have to be responsible for them because they were undeserving of hallowed ground. And yeah, it was just sort of like literally tossing them outside of society, just a crossroads where like people are just going to cross over you all the time and nobody is tending to the land there or anything like that.
Right.
Crossroads burials in the UK were abolished by an act of parliament in 1823, so not actually that long ago.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, it's like 200 years ago.
Yeah.
Crazy. There was also a story it's a really old story of the Everton vampire. In 1680, a local farmer murdered his wife, then allegedly drank her blood before killing himself. Due to the rather gruesome details of the farmer's last acts before dying at his own hands, it was decided that special requirements were needed to ensure he would not rise from his grave to feed upon the living. So people took the whole just blood-drinking vampire thing very literally.
Yeah, they were like, just in case.
Yeah. It was enough to guarantee that his corpse would never be laid to rest in hallowed ground, and he had to be buried at a crossroads. But the fact that he had drank the blood of his wife made things a little different for him. A site was erected at the crossroads. A grave was dug at night, so his dead body would not be touched by the warming rays of the sun. He was laid in the grave face down, and what was described as a huge stake was driven through his heart to prevent his undead corpse from digging itself out of his permanent resting place and terrorizing the locals. He is rumored to still be buried there to this day.
It's also funny to me that they're like, to avoid the sun reaching him, we'll just put him butt up.
Yeah, face down, ass up.
Yeah. It's like the sun will still hit his backside.
Yeah. There was also another group of people who were overwhelmingly buried at Crossroads, and that were women who were found guilty of witchcraft.
Of course.
There is a place in Gloucestershire, England, called Betty's Grave. The town is Poulton. Reportedly, Betty randomly showed up in the village one night in 1786. She was unable to tell anybody her name or where she was from. Her unusual behaviour caused the villagers to mistakenly assume her to be a witch. The villagers tried to hang her twice, but each time she later climbed out of the grave and returned to the village. In fairness, like the second time you just do it out of spite. You're like, you're trying to hang me twice? I am showing up at their window at night time. I'm going to smear dirt in my face and stare at them.
I'm just thinking about, like, what kind of strength do you have to be hanged twice and you don't die?
And crawl your way out of your own grave.
Yeah.
Like, it took Buffy
Must have been
ages.
shallow at that point.
Yeah.
Buffy ages.
It did. And she has super strength.
Weren't the guys on Supernatural buried alive too?
Yeah, Dean was, definitely.
I was going to say, I know for sure he was, but I'm sure they all were at some point.
Yeah, Dean was, yeah, because it's the episode where he first meets Castiel. He, like, crawls out of a grave.
Yeah. I remember very few details about the show, just like little snippets here and there, but I was like, I think one of them got buried alive.
The villagers actually tried to hang Betty a third time, but she warned them that she would only remain in her grave if they continued to leave flowers for her. They did so, and all seemed well until the 1970s when the tribute stopped. Betty's ghost apparently appeared in Fairford shortly after. When the laying of flowers resumed, she disappeared.
Interesting.
Good for you, Betty. Get what you want out of life.
Good for you. Just makes me think of the Bell Witch. Maybe she would have been nicer if they offered her flowers.
Yeah, exactly. There's also a practice that was associated with Crossroads called gibbeting, which is not something I'd heard of. Yeah. It sounds pretty cutesy, which a lot of like medieval English stuff is, and then you read it and you're like, oh fuck, that's not cute.
But I'm sorry, have you heard of what they call the charms that people put on their Crocs?
Oh yeah, gibbets.
Gibbets.
But that's like a J. I have gibbets. Here.
You have Crocs? Oh
have
my
Crocs.
God, Niamh.
Do you not remember roasting me about getting Crocs?
I suddenly remember, and I'm very disappointed.
Hey.
I was just thinking today, I was like, if either one of us ever gets Crocs, like me and Medardo, it's over.
That's what I used to say. And then I started working from home, and I was like, I'm wearing extremely fluffy socks that are hard to get into slippers. but they're very easy to get crocs over. So
She's been croc-verted.
yeah, completely croc-verted. But I think they're the hipster shoe now. I'm just calling it.
They're the Gen Z shoe for sure.
Oh,
they
yeah.
all wear them.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because their parents put them in them when they were little kids.
That's also true. I forgot about that.
They were like, I can't be tying your shoes. Just wear these Crocs.
I forgot about that wave of toddlers just wearing Crocs all the time. Holy shit. Wow.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Recovered a memory. So the non-Croc type of gibbets, these were gallows.
Crossroads.
The Crossroads. See you at the Crossroads.
Who's buried there?
This was a gallows type structure from which the dead or dying bodies of criminals were hanged on public display, sometimes in cages to deter other existing or potential criminals. The structures were placed next to public highways, frequently at crossroads and waterways.
It is very wild to me to think that that at some point in time, people were like, you know what? We'll make people not be criminals by just showing dead bodies.
That's actually something that we discuss a lot in criminology. And it's the whole notion of trying to discourage other criminals, and it surprisingly does not work. Using shame to set an example. The only time shame ever really works when somebody has done something wrong is when it's a very low stakes thing, so you're basically shaming them on Facebook or something. But
right.
Actual criminals really don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And
well, yeah,
I think, they usually think if they see somebody, if they saw somebody in a gibbet like this and they're like, oh, they're there for thievery or whatever, most of the criminals will just go, well, I'm not going to get caught like that idiot.
Exactly. And they're criminals. They're not.
Yeah.
Serial killers know that ultimately they could be caught and go to prison, but it doesn't deter them.
Yeah. It's not
You know why? Because their brains don't work the same way.
Yeah. It's a calculation they make in their head before they do any of this,
Right. So you're just traumatizing the general population.
Yeah. Fun fact about gibbets is, do you know who Oliver Cromwell is?
Sounds familiar.
So Oliver Cromwell is somewhat of a British national hero. He kind of toppled the monarchy, etc., etc. In Ireland, he is a complete monster. He's like a boogeyman because all of those laws I was telling you about earlier, where they outlawed dancing and Catholicism and speaking Irish language, that was because of him. So Irish people don't love
what a piece of shit.
Don't love him. But anyway, it's much of a muchness. He's been dead a long time. He outlawed the gibbet during his lifetime. But I have a note here. Irish listeners will be delighted to know he was gibbeted after his own death.
Good.
The monarchists that he pissed off disinterred his body during the restoration of the British monarchy. So they literally dug the fucker up and put him there. Now, I'm not a monarchist, but good for them. So that's the gibbets.
Not the Crocs type.
Not the Crocs type. We're going to get into just a few superstitions associated with Crossroads. There is one old folk remedy for warts that involves rubbing the wart with a piece of raw meat. You put the meat in a bag and bury it at the crossroads.
Ew.
Gross, but okay.
I mean, if it works, you do you.
Mm-hmm. In German folklore, if you'd like to hear the names of the people that will die in the coming year, you simply need to visit a crossroads between 11 p.m. at midnight on New Year's Eve, which is obviously another liminal time, to hear the names called out by the wind.
Oh.
That's also the opening plot to, there's a book series called The Raven Cycle, and the main character she's psychic, and it starts with her in a graveyard on New Year's Eve hoping to hear the names of the dead. Which is just funny, because I was like, oh, I didn't know that came from German lore.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I thought the author made this up. In a lot of the research that I've done, it's wow, J.K. Rowling stole from, everything.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like a ton of this stuff, was not her original idea, which is wild to me.
It's funny. It can either, when you start researching things and you realize the origin of it, it can either really impress you, because you'll realize how much research an author actually put into something. That like
Yeah.
you'll find something that they had in their book, like you'll find it buried under like in some like academic journal, and you're like, oh, well, that's where they got that. And you're
Yeah.
like, wow, they put in so much work. Or it'll just be like, they stole this. They just completely lifted this.
Right. I think with her, just because of how many things it
Mhm.
was, it's just like, I don't know. I mean, like, good on you for knowing a lot of like folklore and all that kind of stuff, but
Yeah. Especially back in the 90s when like researching would have been a lot harder than just Googling things, you know?
yeah, you had to go get an encyclopedia and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just kind of a bummer that she stole like everything and then made this huge empire.
Mm-hmm. And then just completely disappointed so many of her trans and LGBT fans.
Yeah.
So we always have to. It's like we'll have like a bingo. It's like we're gonna shit talk J.K. Rowling. We're gonna probably talk about the Warrens, and the third, it wouldn't be an episode of Rowan and Pine without some depressing animal cruelty. Crowing hens were regarded as unlucky, and people would just abandon them at crossroads.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's sad.
that is sad because foxes probably got them. Like a hen,
Yeah.
you're not going to find a hen living in the wild. They're dumb. Yeah,
Which makes it more sad.
yeah, and also even sadder than that, on children who died without being baptized were also buried at crossroads because they weren't allowed on hallowed ground.
Wow.
Yeah, but let's get into some fun things. Some fun crossroads creatures after those two bummers in a row.
Yeah, that's just such a bummer. Just like, oh yeah, and by the way, like children who weren't baptized, they don't get like a real grave.
Yeah. Was it like, it was like last century, just like late last century, the Catholic Church decided that limbo wasn't a thing because limbo used to be like between heaven and hell because they'd nowhere to go. And they
Yeah.
reckon that's where unbaptized babies went. It's horrible.
Just because you didn't
not
pour
their
some
fault.
water on their head. So stupid.
Lord.
Bad
No
Lord.
offense. No offense to the Catholics or anybody Christian.
Right. No offense, but remember, it's the institution we don't like.
Mm-hmm. You guys are cool.
Yeah.
So, some crossroads creatures. Shart from Belgium. Sounded like Shart. It's Oschart. I apologize to anybody who speaks Flemish. Is that what they speak in Belgium? Shart.
Oh, maybe it's... Oh my god. Maybe it's
Hold on.
O'Sheart.
Hold on, I'm looking it up. Google doesn't even know what the fuck I mean.
Oh my god.
There's a Dutch version as well. The Dutch don't have the H, it's Osert. Osert.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
It's fine.
The way you said it, and then you're like, I heard it right away. I'm like, oh, that sounds terrible.
Yeah.
And then you pause to say it again the same exact way.
Maybe if I put on like some sort of accent or shirt. No, that's like Austrian or something. Anyway, the dog, right? He's a black trickster dog that haunted Crossroads. This is my dog, Shart.
Not just Shart. Oh, Shart.
I'm sorry to anybody who's named that. I'm sure there's going to be somebody.
Maybe, but they're probably not listening.
Maybe it's a hard C. Maybe it's Oschart.
That sounds more accurate.
Okay. Oschart.
Oh my gosh. Continue, please.
So this was a black trickster dog from Belgian folklore that haunted Crossroads. You have to stand in the dead center of the crossroads and wait for the dog to leave tail between his legs for him to like not fuck with you.
Interesting. I'm like, what if he leaves and his tail is not between his legs?
I don't know, maybe he saw a rabbit or something. Or maybe he saw the Crossroads cat. So there's a Crossroads cat called the Money Cat. To conjure the cat, you must leave a food offering, particularly a dead hen, probably a crowing one, until it shows itself to you. Then it will allow you to take it home. Once the cat is in your house, it must be trapped in a box or the corner of the house until it is tamed. You must take diligent care of it, including feeding it well and offering it treats. If you let it out early or you don't take proper care of it, it will flee your home and curse you with bad luck. Okay. Every aspect of that sounds like a regular cat.
Just a regular old cat.
You just have to bring a cat home, feed it well, give it treats, and Ewan always refers to it as Stockholm syndroming a cat. Like, when you first get a cat, you basically have to, like, keep it, like, in your house, like, constantly, and, like, keep it, like, to one room and just make it kind of love you a bit.
Right.
So it will stop
like,
constantly trying to run away
this.
and yowling.
Yeah.
So,
that's funny.
Yeah, the Crossroads cat, hot take here, it's just a cat.
If you are out there and you have a cat, it's a Crossroads cat.
Yeah, especially if you find it at a crossroads.
Yeah, then it's definitely a Crossroads cat.
Yeah, but definitely don't let it like run away because it will curse you with bad luck.
For sure.
Yeah. So the most famous or the most often associated thing with Crossroads are deals with the devil. Crossroads.
When I was telling Medardo you were doing Crossroads, he was like what? And I was like, you haven't heard of like the Crossroads stuff where you like make a deal with the devil?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, no.
Oh, cool. This is a Medardo educational podcast. There will be a test.
Are you listening?
Crossroads, because they're a liminal space, they're a good place to call upon and to meet with the devil. This notion has a historical context. Theophilus, an Orthodox cleric in the 6th century, was said to have made a deal with the devil to gain an ecclesiastical position. His story is significant as it is the oldest recorded story of a pact with the devil. This then led to the story of Faust. We also know like the term a Faustian deal or a Faustian bargain. This all comes from that. Faust is a classic German legend that has been adapted into various literary works and plays. One of the most famous versions is Johann Wolfgang von Goethe's tragic play, just called Faust. So the very basic story of Faust is Mephistopheles, who was, in some of the legends, he was the devil himself. In other legends, and I think in the play, he's just a representation of the devil, makes a bet with God that he will be able to turn one of God's servants away from God or turn him evil.
Okay.
So they choose Faust. God agrees, claiming that Faust will remain one of his loyal followers. Faust was a scholar and an alchemist, was a man dissatisfied with his own life's limitations because he really wanted to be able to gain all the knowledge in the crafts that he was dedicating his life to. And he was becoming extremely despondent because I'm thinking if he was an alchemist, he was trying to turn lead into gold, and obviously that wasn't working. So that's probably one of the reasons he was getting kind of pissed off about it.
He's like, none of my projects are working.
Yeah. He agrees to sell his soul to Mephistopheles in exchange for unlimited knowledge, worldly pleasures, and boundless power. Mephistopheles, who is cunning and manipulative, accepts the bargain and becomes Faust's dark companion and guide. Faust's life undergoes a dramatic transformation. He regains his youth, he indulges in sensual pleasures, and he goes on grand adventures. He even falls in love with a young woman named Gretchen, but their relationship eventually leads to tragedy. Faust's pursuit of his desires and Mephistopheles' influence create a trail of chaos, corruption, and destruction. And as the consequences of Faust's actions accumulate, he becomes increasingly aware of the moral and ethical implications of his choices. He witnesses the suffering of those he has harmed, particularly Gretchen, who's driven to despair by the consequences of their relationship with Faust when she decides to kill their infant child and is, as a result, arrested. After she's arrested, Faust sneaks into the jail and finds Gretchen. She has devolved into insanity. She doesn't recognize Faust, instead mistaking him for her executioner. Faust pleads with her to escape with him, but her own sense of guilt and shame, as well as the prospect of the despairing life that she will live outside of the jail, prevents her from escape. In the end, Faust seeks redemption, strives to undo the harm he's caused. His journey takes him into the mystical realm of the mothers, where he hopes to find ultimate wisdom and salvation. However, Mephistopheles is always close by, eager to claim Faust's soul as per their pact. So that's the Faustian bargain, or the Faustian deal. It's so sort of famous, it's become like a shorthand for like a, you know, a deal where you're basically selling a part of yourself or selling a part of your soul in return for something that probably isn't worth it, or will turn out to not be worth it.
Interesting. I never heard that story before.
I had never heard it like completely like laid out. I knew it was like to do with the deal with the devil, and I knew it was somebody who wanted either great power or great knowledge, but yeah, I didn't know about Gretchen. Poor Gretchen. Probably maybe the second most famous story to do with deals at the Crossroads is the infamous...
Is this the blues musician?
The infamous Crossroads legend of Robert Johnson.
That's the one I know. Yeah.
So Robert Johnson was one of the most influential blues musicians of all time. He was born in Mississippi in 1911. His early life was marked by poverty and obscurity. The legend goes that he made a pact with the devil at a crossroads in exchange for extraordinary guitar playing skills. According to the story, Johnson met a dark figure at a desolate crossroads, and after a midnight guitar session, he emerged with an uncanny ability to play the blues like no one else.
A jam sesh?
A jam sesh. Or Tenacious D there? We don't know. His music then obviously went on to captivate audiences, and in fairness, he didn't really lean away from the legend because his most famous songs were things like Crossroads Blues and There's a Hellhound on My Tail.
Yeah.
They're both iconic blues songs. Tragically, in real life, he is part of the 27 Club. People reckon that he died, obviously, at 27 under mysterious circumstances in 1938. Researchers, when they looked into his actual death certificate, there is no cause listed on it.
That's weird.
That has fueled the myth of both the 27 Club and the whole deal with the devil thing. Like he just died.
Or possibly hate crimes.
Yes.
Because he was a black man in the South.
Yes, very true. I'm sure that his originality and his style of playing was co-opted later by a lot of white musicians who got even more famous.
Right.
'Cause that's the way these things go. But yeah, go stream Crossroad Blues or something like after you listen to this, because yeah, it deserves to be heard.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I've listened to his music before. It's good.
Yeah, I was listening to some of it like when I was researching this, and then I was making that like I was talking to you about like my fixation with that music genre called Southern Gothic, where it's all like real old like bluesy, folksy, dark. Like it's just, you know, folk songs about murder and dying and death and stuff like that.
And crossroads demons.
Yes, pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it has been speculated that the quote-unquote devil that Johnson met was actually Papa Legba, who is a voodoo trickster god. They say in this article God. I'm going to tell you why that's not accurate, because the next part of the podcast is going into the voodoo religion and talking about their affinity and respect and affection for Crossroads. So, blanket disclaimer, I have looked into voodoo as a religion. I have tried to be as accurate as possible with all of the entities and the spirits and the pantheons and the families and all of that, but there are a lot of conflicting things online, and obviously I am not a practitioner. If you want to know anything actually like accurate and reliable, there are lots of amazing creators online that do seem to like to share about their religion, so I suggest you go check one of those out. But I'm going to start us off with a quote from Hoodoo in America by Zora Hurston, which is a seminal article from the 1930s from the Journal of American Folklore. So Zora writes, Vodou is the European term for African magic practices and beliefs, but it is unknown to the American Negro. His own name for his practices is hoodoo, both terms being related to the West African term juju. Conjure is also freely used by the American Negro. These are her words. I apologize if I am offending anyone by using these words. For these practices. In the Bahamas, as on the west coast of Africa, the term is obia, And roots is the Southern Negroes' term for folk doctoring by herbs and prescriptions, and by extension, and because all hoodoo doctors cure by roots, it may be used as a synonym for hoodoo. So that's bringing it back to episode 1. Folk cures in this tradition can be referred to as roots or also hoodoo.
That's cool.
We do love a throwback.
I really like that. With every episode we do, there's like always tie-ins to other stuff.
Yeah.
It's so magical.
Just shows that, like, when cultures like move across like continents and like people mix and borrow and all of that, like a lot of this stuff shows up again and again in different cultures, like either called by a different name or with like a slightly different belief or anything like that.
Right. Like how with like in Appalachia, the people, like the white settlers in that area and the Native American folklore, it all just kind of like blended together.
Exactly. And that's actually similar to how voodoo merges both Catholic and African beliefs to form a unique set of rituals that include the classic, as we've seen from all of our media, like voodoo dolls, symbolic drawings, the using of, dust and sand and lots of stuff that you might see, you might look at that and go, if that was in a church, that would not look out of place.
Right.
But because people are doing it in their homes, because, these are their own places of worship and they have their altars that they're able to build and, add to and use that to express their spirituality.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it any less valid. And yeah, it's just interesting that these are two that seem very different religions that have merged.
Well, it reminds me of, like, in witchcraft, like, altars are a big thing. And then in Catholicism, they have altars around the church. But, like, religious people will see, like, a witch's altar and be like, oh my God, and they, like, freak out about it. And it's, like, basically the same thing you're doing, just, it might not be to, like, capital G God.
Yeah. And it's just, like, praying by another name is just chanting.
Right.
Yeah.
And singing hymns and stuff like that.
Exactly.
It's all similar. It's just different.
Yeah.
It's not even like different ways of doing it. It's just different
contexts, I guess.
Yeah, I'm like, because you're not like seeking a different outcome. You're still seeking the same outcome. I don't know.
Well, some of it, I know with hymns are like obviously part of worship, but like they've done studies about like the effects of group singing on your brain.
Right.
And that you feel like more like you belong.
Yeah, and that's why people love going to like live shows or concerts.
Yeah.
And they all sing together and like you feel like you're bonding with everybody. It's like such a good moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or it's like if you go to a massive sporting event and everybody's singing the same like chant or whatever, it's all like down to like your human nature and that you enjoy like feeling like you belong to something bigger than yourself.
Right.
So yeah, humans are cute. We're all just cute. We all just want to be like part of something.
Right. We're just cute little losers who don't know what we're doing. Or do we know what we're doing? I don't know. Anyway. Voodoo!
Probably most known associated with voodoo are the Loa. This can be spelled L-W-A or L-O-A. I have both in my notes because my notes are also a mishmash of many things. It's important to note that Loa are not gods or goddesses or deities. So the quote that I was pulling from earlier that said that Papa Legba is a god is not accurate. So Loa are spirits. Voodoo is similar to Christianity, monotheistic. Voodoo practitioners only have one god. This entity is the creator of the universe, and it's called the Bonde or the Grand Met. The word Bondi is derived from the French word bon Dieu, which literally means good God.
Interesting.
The Loa play a major role in the lives of voodoo practitioners or devotees. Human beings serve the Loa, whom they love, respect, and fear. Often practitioners will choose a certain Loa that they would wish to follow.
Sort of like a saint?
Sort of like a saint, yeah. So it's like they'll represent whatever characteristics that they're seeking.
Okay.
Or that they're, they feel an affinity with.
Yeah, or like a god or a goddess.
Yeah, but it's a spirit.
Yeah.
Also, as a mark of respect, voodoo practitioners always use the prefix papa, maman, or maître, which means father, mother, or mistress, when referring to a Loa. In return for their devotion and piety, the living expect blessings, protection, and favors. So, like, why wouldn't you? You can get some cool stuff out of life.
Yeah. Favors.
The Loa are divided into different groups. One source I saw said that there are, I think, 17 different groups. These groups are known as nations, coming from the French word for nations. There's probably 2 to 3 that are the most famous, and we're only going to focus on a couple from those 3 categories. The 2 main ones are the Petwo and the Rada. According to Vodou belief, the Loa communicate with humans through dreams and divination, and in turn are given offerings. Offerings can include sacrificed animals or maybe foodstuffs or like vices like rum or like tobacco or something like that are associated with the Loa. Also, interestingly, and this is where it can get confusing for somebody like me who's just coming into this really fresh, the same Loa may appear as a Rada and a Petwo. So there can be 2 different members of these 2 different nations or nations. Can be one spirit, but depending on the aspects of the spirit that are being represented, there'll be a member of the Rada or the Petwo. I'm going to explain that.
Okay.
So what distinguishes the Rada and the Petwo is the general character, attitude, and the persona of the Loa. So Rada Loa are associated with peace and benevolence, but they can also turn out to be a little bit vindictive if they're displeased or if they're offended. In contrast, the Petwo Loa are commonly thought of as forceful, aggressive, or dangerous. So just like people, there could be like 2 different sides to a character, and depending on the situation or what's being like asked of them, that would be who is being represented. Just very basically, Rada Loa are often considered to also have Petro aspects, which are harsher and more aggressive than their Rada counterparts. So we will see an example of this going forward.
Okay.
Papa Legba, who is somebody that you probably, when you're picturing Vodou Loa or Vodou spirits, you're probably like bringing to mind Papa Legba or Bowen Samedi, who I'm going to talk about after. So Papa Legba is an older spirit. He's usually like a bent over old man, and he's basically seen as like benevolent. He's like a kind of like a grandfather figure.
Okay.
Just a side note that it kept coming up in my research that there was like some white lady who apparently died, and because she was trying to summon Papa Legba, and a lot of practitioners were like, it's kind of like the equivalent of summoning Santa Claus. Like, he's not like a vengeful spirit. Like, why are they trying to say that she died because she summoned him? Anyway,
propaganda.
That just shows, people going into, spaces where they don't understand properly.
Right.
Like I am doing now.
But at least you're not trying to like make it bad.
Yeah, I'm trying to be as respectful as I can and trying to understand as much as I can.
Yeah.
So Papa Legba is a Vodou Loa who's strongly associated with Crossroads magic, and he is rumored to be the spirit that Robert Johnson actually met, not the devil.
Okay.
Because the devil was probably more well known at that stage, so it made a better story to say it was the devil.
Yeah.
Legba is one of the most important Loa in Haitian voodoo. He is the first called in a service so that he can open the gates to the spirit world. So he's almost like the key master.
Yeah.
So when you are starting a service or like beginning to worship, you must call Papa Legba and basically ask him for permission at the beginning. And you also must reference him at the end to close out the service as well. So that's how important he is.
Yeah.
No Loa dares show itself without Papa Legba's permission. He controls the crossing over from one world to the other. He's also known to hold the key of the spiritual world, and for that reason, he's identified a lot with the Christian St. Peter, who guards the gates of heaven.
That's interesting.
Physically, he's a small, crooked, lovable old man who uses a little pipe with tobacco. He carries bits of food in a sack, and he has sores on his body, but when he mounts someone, the person's limbs are twisted and horrible to see. So it seems like these spirits can like sort of take over people or like mount them.
Yeah. Giving him a piggyback ride.
Mm-hmm. Similar to how Loa can have 2 separate identities, Legba has a twin identity called Kalfu. This comes from the French term Carrefour, which literally means crossroads.
Okay.
So Kalfu also controls the crossroads, but he controls the dark spirits. So the spirits of sinners or malevolent spirits. So whereas Legba will be, the one who lets like positive spirits cross over, or people who aren't like destined for like bad things in the afterlife.
Yeah, just like your grandma or whatever.
Yeah, so Kalfu's sort of like Lucifer, and he sort of looks after the dark spirits and the quote-unquote sinners of the world. He's also been likened to Pandora in Greek mythology because he lets out the evil forces of the spirit world when he wants. He also allows the crossing of bad luck, deliberate destruction, misfortune, and injustice. He controls the in-between points of the crossroads, the off-center points, whereas Legba controls the positive spirits of the day and the center parts of the crossroads. So he's sort of like the balance to Legba.
Okay.
And it seems to be like the balance of the world because like everything can't be good and positive all of the time or else you wouldn't appreciate it.
Right.
When Kalfu enters a service, everybody usually stops speaking because he is allowing evil to come to the ceremony. Some people sort of characterize him as a demon, but a lot of people would also, and it says that Kalfu would deny this. And though he is a respected Loa, he is not liked very much. He's also the Grandmaster of Charms and Sorceries, and he's associated mainly with black magic.
Oh.
Yeah.
So he's a spooky boy.
Mm-hmm. So he's like the dark side of Papa Legba.
Yeah.
When I was originally looking into this, the only name that I really knew was Baron Samedi or Baron Samedi or Samdi, as practitioners seem to call him. Emily and I were talking about this before. I was saying I've been saying Samedi this whole time.
Yeah. So that's how I pronounced it too.
Yeah. But there is a family of Loa who represent the powers of death and fertility, and they celebrate life in the midst of death. They're sort of like, I've seen them described as the party crashers at the end of the ceremony. So these Loa are known as the Gede. In some sources, it said that Gede were another category of Loa. In other sources, it said Gede was simply a family of Loa, and they weren't like a separate category of them. The head of the Gede is Papa Gede. He is the eternal figure in black, controlling the eternal crossroads at which everyone must someday cross over. His symbol is the cross upon a tomb. Now, you're probably listening to that and thinking, but isn't that what Papa Legba is? And same. I was like, who? What? It's the editing gremlin. I realized I just said this was confusing and then never actually properly explained it. The closest likeness I could draw is if you think of Legba and Kaifu as the double-sided coin of St. Peter and Lucifer, then Papa Gede and Bawan Samedi are more like death. Does that make sense? Anyway, back to the show. One of Gede's great powers is he is a protector of children. He does not like to see children suffer or die. He believes that they need a full life. Thus, he is the Loa to go to when you're seeking help for a sick child. He also has the power over zombies, voodoo zombies, and decides whether or not people can be changed into animals.
Interesting.
Any such black magic voodoo must seek the help of Papa Gede. Other spirits fear him. And especially because his alter ego is Baron Samedi. So Baron Samedi represents the death.
He's like the darkness side.
Yes,
yeah.
The death side of Gede. He is the keeper of the cemetery, and he's the primary contact with the dead. Anyone who seeks contact with the dead must first solicit Gede or Baron Samedi in the same way that Legba is contacted to cross over to the spirit world. So he is the Loa of death and resurrection. But he's also the Loa of history too. He's the keeper of the ceremony, and because he has intimate contact with the dead, he knows what their plans were and are, and what's going on in families, and what the connections of things are between people. And he can be quite generous with his information if he's given the correct offering. He's characterized as being quite vulgar and funny and clownish, and he's like a real character. And
interesting. His face would say otherwise.
Yeah, Baron Samedi is usually depicted with a top hat, black tailcoat, dark glasses, and cotton plugs in the nostrils, as if to resemble a corpse dressed and prepared for burial in the Haitian style. He is also frequently depicted as a skeleton, but sometimes simply as a black man that merely has his face painted as a skull, and he speaks in a really nasal voice.
Like me currently.
Since Gede is the quote-unquote Lord of Death, he's also the final last resort for healing if somebody's on their deathbed, since he decides whether to accept the sick person into the land of the dead or to allow them to recover.
Interesting.
His wisdom is unparalleled because his knowledge of the world and the collective knowledge of the dead that he, I don't want to say controls, but the dead that he interacts with. It is also believed that the first man buried in this is in Haitian voodoo, the first man buried in a ceremony becomes a manifestation of Bao and Samedi. And that person serves as a guardian of the cemetery. And similarly, the first woman becomes a manifestation of Samedi's wife, Grand Bridget.
Wait, the first person?
Yeah. So when there's like a new cemetery, the first person who's buried there, it's believed that.
Oh, a new cemetery.
Yeah.
I think you said a new ceremony.
Oh, did I? Okay. Yeah. So
You might have.
apologies. The first,
Or maybe I just misheard.
the first man buried in a cemetery becomes a manifestation of Bao and Samedi. So I would assume that's quite comforting. If, like, say you lost like your grandfather or something, and he was being buried in this brand new cemetery, you know that he has become the guardian of the cemetery.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty nice.
You're like, I don't know about this cemetery, and they're like, we got you.
Interestingly, Samedi often removes the right lens of his glasses to observe the living world while using the other lens to keep an eye on the realm of the dead.
That's cool.
That's really cool. I can see
I wish
why.
I could do that.
I would say it's like probably really offensive, but I can see why a lot of people like to dress up as Samedi for like Halloween and stuff.
Right. Well, it's kind of like all of the stuff about Halloween that people like.
Exactly. He's a spooky boy. He's got flair. He wears a top hat. His colors are like purple and black, you know?
Yeah. He's got the skeleton face.
Yeah, skeleton face. He's like really kind of extroverted and flamboyant and does a lot of like dancing.
When you get your fall cold, you can sound like him.
Yeah. He's also famous for crafting his own potent liquor known as raw clarin, which is a type of inexpensive rum infused with 21 hot peppers, rendering it incredibly spicy and unpalatable to other Loa.
Okay.
So that's why a lot of times offerings to Samedi's altar is you offer him rum because he likes his rum.
So he's a spicy, spooky boy.
Mm-hmm. His powers, aside from deciding who can die and who can go on living, he ensures that the veil between the living world and the dead, so Halloween, is never truly disrupted, and that the dead never return as zombies to bother the living. But if they do, he can control them. Yeah, that's a cool power.
Interesting. Yeah.
He also maybe petition for help with conception, as he represents the confluence of sexuality and death. Hey.
So he's a sexy, spicy, spooky boy.
We like him. He seems like a lot of fun. He's like everything good about the world. He's like rum and sex and dancing and zombies, and it's like all the things that I like.
And spicy
things, yeah. Absolutely. He's also invoked as the patron of many professionals who come into contact with death, such as gravediggers, mortuary workers, people who work in like funeral homes or, you know, like officiated funerals or anything like that.
Yeah.
And he also has a celebration, the Fête Gede celebration, which is Feast of the Dead, which anybody who is familiar with Day of the Dead in the Mexican culture.
Yeah.
So just like a description of how that is celebrated. The Feast of the Dead is a time when Vodouisons, I really hope I pronounced that right, celebrate the ancestral dead, typically held during either or both the first 2 days in November. So it's known as the Festival of the Ancestors. It's like the voodoo equivalent of Mardi Gras, the Mexican Day of the Dead, and Halloween all in one. So they're trying to say that it's like a festival, and it's like kind of debauched and stuff, but it's also like Day of the Dead, but it's also like spooky like Halloween. I think that's what they're trying to say.
Yeah, and like honoring your ancestors and all that kind of stuff. Interesting. Yeah. That sounds, honestly, it sounds pretty fun.
I saw some photos of it and it looked amazing, like the way people were painted and everything, like body paint and all of that.
Yeah.
So
That's probably where the Mardi Gras stuff comes in.
So people dress up, take to the streets, dance their communion with the ancestors, walk in processions to the graveyards where they feed their ancestral dead with the gifts of their own table. In this way, the spirits are honoured and their protection is gained for the coming year. In churches, there is music, dancing, and feasting. The priests and the people come together, and there's a lot of drumming, singing, laughter. It's supposed to be enough and loud enough to raise the dead. So you're supposed to like party as hard as you possibly can.
That's so cool.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Even though it shares calendar space and ideology with the Roman Catholic Day of the Dead or All Souls Day, Fetgede can be more accurately said to derive from African traditions preserved largely unchanged through centuries. There's also a special ancestral service held at the Crossroads to honour Papa Gede, because it's considered the bridge between life and death. And rituals can also take place throughout November, but are concentrated at the beginning of the month. Gifts that can be laid out are homemade beeswax candles, flowers, food, and to warm the Gede's bones, bottles of rum stuffed with chili peppers. And that is my episode on Crossroads. Oh, that felt like a long one.
Yeah, it was very informative. I was just sitting here like learning a lot.
It was very hard. I probably could have edited myself more, but I kept finding stuff and going, oh, that's really interesting. Oh, that's really interesting. That's the trouble with this sometimes.
Yeah, even when I was doing like the witch's broom stuff, I was like, okay, try to like keep it like, like
concise. Relevant.
Yeah, but it's like you can kind of like talk about like some little things that are like surrounding that, but like don't go too far out.
Yeah. It's so hard. I think because we're both so interested in this stuff, you just want to like, it's so hard not to just info dump on you and just be like, yeah, Emily, did you know that?
Right.
I read this. Did you see this? You know?
Well, I think it's good because then we have more stuff for different episodes.
Yeah.
When I was doing the researching about like witches' brooms, I think I was texting you about it, about how I was like, doing a whole series on this would be so much fun because there's just so many books and articles and blogs, and there's just like a lot of information out there.
Like full multi-episode podcasts have been made just about the Salem witch trials.
Right.
Like when you think about like how much is in that.
Yeah.
You know, like you could definitely write so much more. All right.
So one of our listeners, I don't know if we should name them. We'll not.
We'll call him
Anonymous.
Introverted in Indiana. I don't know if he lives in Indiana.
Not in Indiana. But, so the advice that we are being asked, I would like to get outside more with my family. What do you suggest we do?
Interesting.
And now I will draw a name from
this is our very high-tech name drawing.
My very fancy box that I have made. A banshee.
Oh. So the banshee would like to give you some advice on how to get back outside with your family more.
This generation has become far too soft and they don't want to go outside at all anymore. It's absolutely terrible. And I do be wandering about the place all the time at night, and I don't know where I'm going because it's dark all the time. And people do be stealing my combs, and they look at my hair and they do be laughing because they be like, look at her over there with the really long hair. So I think what you should do, because you can go out in the daytime, is you should pack up the car and you should get the family out into a nice moor. I do love a nice moor. And go out into the moor and have a wee sniff of the heather, and it'll be lovely. But the only thing is, once it gets dark, I'm going to come out and I'm going to scream at you, especially if you're one of the O's or one of the Macs, because fuck yous all and you can all die right here.
Okay, thank you, Banshee. That was a little aggressive, but we do appreciate you.
Aggressive.
Yeah, we do appreciate your advice.
Hopefully you understood that.
So, Anxious in Indiana, or whatever your name was.
Introverted in Indiana.
We hope that this helps you. We hope that the banshee who came to visit is very helpful for you in how to get outside with your family.
Yeah. She left the window open. It's absolutely freezing in here now.
That's
So
so
she just
rude.
floated up here. She's so rude. Just because you don't need a draft excluder. We do.
I do not know what that is.
These fucking ghosts, man. It's, you put it so you don't get a draft in your door or your
Okay.
like, yeah. These banshees floating with their hair and everything.
Yeah.
Trying to entice people outside.
Yeah.
Leaving combs on windowsills.
Yeah.
So rude.
So rude.
So yeah, just go out in daytime. I don't think she'll bother you otherwise.
Go out and die
But if you see her sitting on a wall, daytime.
Daytime. Oh my God. This is probably the first time I have not understood what you said.
Maybe I just can't drop the accent once I put it back on.
Yeah.
So if you have any other questions, burning questions that you need answered, maybe you're going to get like some bedroom advice from Zeus. Maybe you're going to get some swimming advice from a mermaid. No, you're not, because we don't have that in there.
We haven't done mermaids yet, so you're not going to get mermaid advice.
Maybe you're going to get some grooming advice from a werewolf. Who knows?
Yeah.
I'm sure they know a really good razor. I would assume so.
Yeah. Although I don't think that they do much shaving.
Yeah, if they do, it would be nightmare on their plumbing.
Yeah. And the razor burn would be probably pretty intense.
It would
My
be
brother, shout out to my brother. This is like public stuff, so I'm not sharing anything that is not a surprise. But my brother, he had like a photographer, someone that he knew. She had to do a photo shoot for a romance novel, and they wanted my brother to be like the guy on the cover of the romance novel.
How does anybody do that and not feel so awkward?
So he is very hairy and had to shave his entire like abdomen. And
Oh my god.
he had like the worst razor burn. He was like, I'm dying.
Oh my god. I can't imagine. I've had it like on my legs before when I've been like rushing too much.
Yeah.
It's bad enough on your legs. Holy shit.
I get it like all the time, so it sucks. But yeah, so my brother was on the cover of a romance novel, which we make fun of basically anytime anybody remembers. But what's even funnier is that we do with my mom and like my step family, we do like white elephant gifting at Christmas time. Do you know what that is?
Mm-hmm. Is it like Kris Kringle? Secret Santa?
So it's like a game where like you bring like a joke gift and you bring like a real gift.
Oh.
Or one person brings either a joke gift or a real gift, or I can't remember how it works. But then you like pick numbers and then somebody gets to go into the pile and like pick out a gift and then open it, and then it might be like a prank gift or it might be just like a gift card, which is something you'd actually want. But so a few Christmases ago, my brother and his girlfriend put the romance novel that my brother was on the cover of in as like a prank gift. And my stepdad's dad, so like my step grandpa, opened it. And he was very confused.
Oh my god.
And he did not even realize that it was my brother on the cover. And then everybody's like, no, that's Michael. And he was just like, what?
He's just like, am I going to have to read this?
So that was pretty hilarious.
That's so funny. Oh my god.
Yeah. But anyway.
But yeah, if you have any Creature Counsel questions, please submit them to our Instagram or to our email. Everything is linked in the link tree below. So you don't have to go hunting for things and you don't have to listen to us listing them out again for the second time in this episode.
So we just want to say happy Halloween from Rowan and Pine.
Happy Halloween. We hope you have a really fun and safe and wholesome, if that's what you like, Halloween. If you're cool, we hope it scares the shit out of you. And we hope you do something really spooky and creepy and embrace the weirdo inside yourself.
Right. Go to a haunted house, bake some pumpkin bread if that's what you're into.
Did you decide on what you're doing for Halloween?
Me?
Were you going to do, yeah.
Yeah.
Were you doing a party or something?
Oh, no. We have there's like a billion birthdays in October and weddings. And so we're just doing parties and weddings and we're not really doing. But one of the parties that we're going to is a costume party for it's like a little kid's birthday.
Oh.
So I'm dressing up like a witch who has like crows flying around her and like sitting on her shoulder. I bought like little like fake crows, and then I'm dressing my baby as a crow.
Oh.
Because she will probably also be on my body.
She will be attached.
She'll be attached.
That's so cute. Is Medardo dressing up?
I keep asking him, I'm like, so what are you gonna be? And he's like, That's exactly how he sounds. And I'm like, you have to figure it out.
The collective woman doing a man's voice is like, make them sound as dumb as possible. No matter what the man sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I was like, you could also be a crow. And he was like, and I said, okay, well, you have not much time left, so better figure it out. How about you?
We are doing I don't know if you, like, people who are binge listening and didn't listen, it wasn't that long since they listened to the last Halloween episode. I mentioned, like, before how there's, like, it's almost like an outdoor museum not far from me, and they do, like, a Halloween, like, spooky, they basically turn the entire outside place into, like a haunted house where, like, people are in costumes and they'll, like, jump out at you and, like, hide behind trees and stuff.
Yeah.
We tried to go last year, but, we thought we were all smug and we thought we were being like really proactive, and we booked far too early, and the actual like scary stuff hadn't been released yet, so we booked like a daytime thing for kids.
Oh
but
no.
at like 6 p.m. And it was fine, but it was a lot of like, it was like the origins of Samhain. You would have actually loved it. It was like people like carving turnips and like baking soda bread and like talking about like how Irish people celebrated like Samhain before, or like as it became like a Christian like nation. So it was a lot of like old traditional like Irish like crafts and stuff like that.
So you're saying that you didn't like it, but I would? Are you implying
Well, no.
that I'm a child?
No, I'm implying that like if you went there expecting what it was, it would be great. But we were there like, I want like to be scared. You know, we wanted like teenage boys like screaming at us. Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, we actually got tickets for it this year. So we're definitely going this year.
Awesome.
And then I just saw that like the local like craft beer brewery have started doing like different events. Like they're doing a clothes swap tomorrow, but they're doing like a Halloween thing too. So
okay,
I might see that's like a different day. So yeah, different little Halloween-y stuff. But we're not doing like parties or anything like that. People don't really have like Halloween parties here. Like, people will dress up and go out to, like, pubs and all that. Halloween parties are more of, like, a college thing. And then after that, it sort of dies off unless people have kids.
Yeah, that's such a bummer. That's one thing that I really do like about, like, the U.S. is that we celebrate Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
no, you guys
really
do it
celebrate
way better
Halloween.
than us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything modern about Halloween, we've, like, adopted back from you guys. So, it's cool. This concludes our October content at Rowan and Pine. We hope that you enjoyed it. We hope you liked getting like the extra little short episodes.
Yeah.
Thank you for supporting us as we tried something a little bit different. We tried some more scripted things.
Yeah, more
month.
scripted and serious. I had one of our listeners who has become like one of the biggest fans. He was asking, I was asking him about what he thought about the first Pinecones episode, and he was like, definitely different, but I did like it. So that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had a lot of fun like playing around with music and sound effects and stuff like that. If it ever becomes too much, please tell us.
It's just a sound effect like every 2 seconds.
Yeah. So yeah, hope you learned some stuff. Hope we helped you get into the spooky mood. Hope your Halloween is great. And yeah, I've been Niamh.
And I'm Emily.
And fuck yeah, folklore.
Fuck yeah, folklore, and happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Bye. Is that the Banshee?
Oh my god, she's back.
Shit.
I'll try and channel as some sort of Irish accent.
You have an Irish accent.
I know,
What the
but my
fuck?
accent doesn't. My accent doesn't fit.
Oh my god, do the one that you use when you talk on the phone with your dad.